The Marvel Rivals closed beta test, and no, I refuse to call it by the abbreviation, came out a couple days ago and I have been loving it to bits, so much so to the point that I'm going to start making some videos on it. Typically, whenever I find a game that I like enough to actually make a video on, I usually end up covering the entire thing, and since it's usually these MOBA hero shooter type genre games I like the most, that also means I end up covering the aspects of the characters that I like in it. But in the case of Marvel Rivals, I like these characters so much, I honestly want to be making videos where I go a little more in depth on every single one, hence why I'm going to start making a series like this. I mean, you all read the title. But I also want to talk about Marvel Rivals itself because, I mean, look, it is a good game. So if you'll all excuse me for a moment, I'm going to do a quick spiel on Marvel Rivals, the actual game, what I think of it, and then we're actually going to be talking about the best character ever made in fiction. So if you want to skip ahead from that, there's timestamps that you can use below. So we may as well open with this. Marvel Rivals is no Overwatch killer like many have called any hero shooter that's popped up within the last 8 years. Yes, there is plenty of Overwatch comparisons to be made, and as I make videos on this game I'll continue to mention bits and pieces, but it should be mentioned that these games may be similar, but they're very different in their mechanics, whether it's the smallest of things that I noticed. Like how the movement acceleration is different, characters take just a bit to get up to full speed, unlike Overwatch, and saying this is making me realise how much of a nerd I actually am, oh my god. Now there's much bigger things than that, just the destructible environments, which I actually like a lot more than other games, which include them as they magically rebuild themselves, meaning fights can start with a fully built area, end with it half destroyed, and then in the middle of the third fight they rebuild, changing how you play since a piece of natural cover just appeared in front of your eyes. One of my personal favourite aspects is the team up system. Built-in synergy for certain characters when they're on the same team, like Rocket being able to ride on Groot's shoulders, or Spider-Man and Penny getting mini Venom spikes added to their kits if they have a Venom on their team. While I really enjoy these, I also have a slight issue with them, being that they're heavily favoured towards one side of the synergy. Say for example, Hulk pairing with Doctor Strange or Iron Man. Strange gets a nice bit of extra damage on his E, and Iron Man gets a massive buff to his best ability, massively increasing his damage potential. And Hulk? He gets an extra 150 HP. And this happens across the board. Anyone on the left side of the team up just gets a stat increase. For all the tanks but Thor, it's a 150 HP. There's also healing and damage percentage buffs for the other characters, but you know something? The bonus HP doesn't even work. Let's look at this clip here. Venom has a base HP of 800, and in this clip I have a Spider-Man on my team, and I'm not getting my bonus 150 HP. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what I'm actually supposed to receive, but I really don't think that I am. So while the team-up system is really fun, I do wish it did more for the characters who activate it. It could be something on the more subtle end, just anything that's not some random stat buff, but maybe all we actually need is just for the stat buffs to be fixed so that they actually apply. For some things that are on the smaller side again, first is that being on high ground and trying to shoot down on a small character is really wonky, because sometimes just whatever you're shooting ends up hitting the floor that you're actually standing on, not going down at the people you're aiming at. You nearly need to be falling off the platform for it to actually reach them. There's also no row lock. You just queue up and you can swap characters mid-game, so it's very much like early Overwatch in that sense. If you like Iron Man on this point but prefer Venom on the next, you can switch. Go for it, why not? And in a slightly similar vein, ultimates transfer between rounds, which adds an extra layer of choice during fights. Think if you're on 99% on control, it may be looking winnable, so you save your ult, only for one of the enemies to clutch it out in a situation where your ultimate actually could have finished it. Of course, the reverse can happen as well. You can end up wasting an ult thinking that it was needed to win. I really like this from a competitive lens as well, even though I do not plan on playing ranked in this game, because you could just try and force ultimates out of the enemy in the final fight so that you can save yours, meaning that in the first fight on the next point, you have an ult combo to fire off immediately to win control. It adds an extra layer of depth in my opinion, which is very nice. So that segment was longer than I expected, but now we can move on to the real reason that we are all here. Jeff the Landshark. Now, you know what I said earlier about Marvel Rivals not being an Overwatch killer? It's not going to be something that actually destroys Overwatch. They're both two games that can exist simultaneously. Never mind, I take that back. We cannot compete with this. We can't compete with it. How do we compete with this? It's impossible. Overwatch is done. I mean, there's no beating this. Like, look at him. He eats as a little snack to reload. He is the smallest of fellas. But anyway, let's look at what we're actually working with here. Starting with his primary fire, Joyful Splash. This, honestly, is probably my favorite heal in the entire game. Just click your mouse and you turn into the strongest fire hose in existence, just absolutely drowning your teammates in what I'm pretty sure is actually the strongest heal in the game outside of ultimates. It also actually acts like a hose, like actual water, which I actually just find really cool. I think it's a very nice extra detail. It's not a hit scan beam, it's a projectile beam. So if someone's far away from you and then you're firing it, it's going to take a second for it to actually reach them. And as you fire across, as you kind of move your mouse, whatever, you can see that it's not firing exactly where you're going to be going. Like, you need to actually aim this in a very peculiar way, but I love it so much for that. Projectile beams are on the rare side in shooter genre games like these, but I am honestly here for it. While even though it is a rarity, and it does make trying to heal my Iron Man in the sky a pain in the ass, on the other hand, it makes it extremely rewarding when I actually do manage to heal him. It's definitely my favorite heal in the game, perhaps even my favorite heal in gaming, though that might be a bit of a stretch. As someone who doesn't typically play support, and if I do, it's usually the weird supports, being able to use this absolute OSHA violation of a thing to heal my allies is such a joy to me. And also, if you can't aim, don't worry about it. Just employ the send it everywhere technique. It'll definitely work out, trust me. And if you hit your teammates, well, forget the beam, because Aqua Burst is a solid damage option. I can't lie, I still haven't gotten used to pretty much all of this game's projectiles, aside from Iron Man's primary fire, but this one is something that I'm really starting to get the hang of now, and it feels so nice to use. You're not going to be outputting more damage than your DPS, but you can definitely do some solid stuff, and if you're ever in some kind of 1v1 scenario, say someone's diving in the backline, well, you can absolutely handle yourself with Aqua Burst. However, we can make it even better. So by itself, Aqua Burst is just, it's alright. It does some nice damage, it's an okay AoE, it's a solid projectile. But if you have a Luna Snow on your team, you can activate your team up, which turns Aqua Burst into an absolute menace. You'll gain a new active reload, and I need to point out that if you have a Luna Snow on your team, you swap from eating a little fish to a little frozen fish. It's a really important detail, trust me. And after using this, you have some empowered attacks for a little while. How empowered? Bigger AoE, bigger damage, big slow area, they're better in every single way. This team up is great. Whenever I swap to just trying to damage people on Jeff, I feel like I'm actually leaving my team by the wayside. I feel that I could actually be doing a bit more if I just stuck behind them and healed. But whenever I have this team up active, I feel like I'm not nearly losing out as much at all. Thanks to the slow zones, that extra bit of utility that gets added to it, you actually gain quite a bit from just sending this everywhere you can. Even if you're not using it directly on enemies, if you're just placing slow zones down in the areas they're trying to walk through, that can be a massive help for your team, and it's not like you're losing nearly as much as you normally would that if you just tried to go for some flank DPS style. Am I advocating for this ability more than I really should just because it gives him a funky reload? Maybe. But at the same time, it is a very nice one to use, and it has enabled a couple flank styles for me, so honestly, I'll take it. It's a very nice one, it is solid. But speaking of team-ups, well, we need to look at his team-up with Groot, which is the exact same as the one with Rocket. Jeff can ride on Groot's shoulders, which, while on the one hand I do love, because if you turn your mouse around, he starts doing like circles around Groot's shoulders on his head, it's brilliant. But on the other hand, this isn't really that useful in a fight to me. Now, I like barely use this team up whatsoever. Now, the main reason for that is that nearly no one plays Groot, but the other reason is that I don't see much of a use for it. I get a little bit of damage reduction hopping onto Groot, who's the guy in the front line, meaning that I become a very easy target for the enemies to hit because I'm not moving at all, I'm just stuck on the tree. It also makes it kind of awkward for me to aim because trying to aim without controlling your own movement is it's not hard, but it becomes a pain because I like to use my AD strafing as part of my aim. This is what playing Overwatch does to you. In my opinion, the Luna Snow team-up is much more immediately impactful than the Groot team-up really is. I mean, hopping on a shoulder during a team fight could end up being the reason that you get saved thanks to the damage reduction that it gives you, but really, just having an empowered auto attack is much better to me than... Well, I mean, okay, look, it is really cute. I mean, the idea of seeing Rocket and Jeff both just riding on Groot, that is kind of funny. But realistically, you just want to Luna Snow. Before we look at his abilities, we may as well cover his passive, Oblivious Cuteness, which is both aptly named and really useful. So if we take a look at Jeff here, as you can see, roughly a quarter of his hitbox is just head crit box, since he's just a little guy. So this passive grants him some reduced damage on crits, which is very nice, but doesn't change the fact that if he sees an Iron Man, he needs to start sprinting away. Now, I know that I was just singing the praises about his heal beam earlier, but honestly, it's not even my favorite ability in his whole kit. That honor goes to hide and seek. I love when a character has an unconventional or weird way of moving around. I mean, I play like Genji, Pharah, Tracer, Venture in Overwatch, but even outside of the shooter genre, I just really like characters who are on extremes. I mean, when I played League, I played Rek'Sai, a character who spends at least 30 to 40% of the game underground. So hide and seek puts Jeff under, water? Underground? I'm not quite sure how it should be referred to. It gives him a small move speed buff and lets him climb up walls, but more importantly, he sometimes sings the Jaws theme when you activate the ability. I love him. Honestly, the main way to use this is just for some extra movement, getting back to your team faster after dying, climbing up on some high ground, things like that. But those are boring. Allow me to introduce you all the correct ways of using hide and seek. Number 1, hiding. Since you can become just a little fin of a hitbox, you can be completely hidden on certain pieces of map geometry. But that's too basic. Let's step it up a little bit. What's the one thing that has been proven that all gamers never do? Look up. Whenever you're trying to run away and escape the enemy, just climb onto the wall above a doorway and they'll have no idea where you went. Just hope they don't walk back the same way. Number 2, sneaking around. Similar to 1, you can just sneak around because you're so tiny, no one will notice you. People don't have eyes. But we have to get to my personal favorite. Number 3, dodge. People can't aim, so make it even harder for them. Start moving around like a maniac on the wall and observe the absolutely brilliant results. I love hide and seek. This is a great ability.
Leave me. Better stop that vehicle!
What the?
The final basic ability is Healing Bubble, and I'm pretty sure this exists only to give Jeff an excuse to run away and do his own thing, and I honestly won't complain. You shoot out a bubble that bounces off walls before coming a mini health pack on the ground. Now, it's a little underwhelming as a heal considering you have Power Wash Simulator built into your kit, but hear me out. You could be boring and throw a bunch of these around your team so you can focus on healing your tank when they're soaking up all the damage. Or you could throw a bunch of your team, wish them the best, and then go on a flank using those charges that come back up as a way to effectively make it so that you have a health pool of 750. There's an obvious answer as to which of these is the correct play. But now, for the best ultimate in Marvel Rivals, it's Jeff. That's the name of it, I swear. After diving, Jeff turns a targeted area into the kidnapping zone, where friend or foe, anyone that he managed to swoop up in it, gets put into his mouth. You can spit out whoever you have in there. It's different buttons for allies and for enemies, so if you need to get an ally out of you because you didn't actually mean to swallow them up, then no worries, you can spit them out immediately. I will say I wish allies could choose themselves when they want to jump out of you, so I don't feel guilty for accidentally kidnapping them, but I mean, sure, look, we can live with it. After swallowing anything, you are put into hide and seek, which does mean that you can climb up a wall with the entire squad, but you are slowed so much that you're only going to be moving up that wall by about like a meter if you're lucky. This ultimate has just so many use cases. I had one team fight where I swallowed up both of the enemy tanks and just kept them in my mouth as a way of effective CC so that my team could just run past them, steamroll the rest of their team, and then I spat them back out and we were eventually able to deal with them. Of course, you could also use it as a way to save your team from something really telegraphed, whether it's anything like a Doctor Strange ult or just some Scarlet Witch coming in who's about to kill everyone. Yes, you're going to end up sacrificing yourself probably, but sometimes that can be worth it for the team. But come on lads, these methods, they're too reasonable. There's not enough whimsy in our game plan here. You know what you're meant to do? Kidnap people and spit them off the map. But that's not the most reliable method, in fairness. Okay, true, there's some characters who can fly, some who have jumping abilities, some who can float down. You know, okay, that's not the most consistent one. So, how do we fix this?
Kill yourself.
Jump off the map. Swallow the enemy and jump off the map. Now, this is hard considering how slow you move during it, but that can be fixed easily by having a Storm, or even better yet, a Doctor Strange on your team to teleport you off of the map with all 6 members of the enemy team, which is pretty much just a one-way stop for Twitter fame. Like, honestly, the only bad thing I can say about this ult is that it can't be used on other ulting characters. Like, you can't pick up a Punisher or a Luna Snow if they're ulting, which I think it should be able to do, but that might just be some property that those ults have, being that you can't stun the user while they're in their ult. I feel like I should be able to eat them up though, realistically. While I do like all the sports in Marvel Rivals, Jeff is an absolute standout to me, for more than just the fact that he's a little guy. He's got options in his playstyle, he controls in a very satisfying way, whether we're talking his movement or drowning your teammates, and of course, he's got one of my favorite ultimates to use, whether you're trying to kill the enemy and have fun, or just, you know, actually win the game, but only one of those is the correct way to play. I really hope that they continue to design supports in the style that they have been designing them, because so far, they're great. They're super fun, and I really hope that we can see more designs similar to Jeff in the future. But that's me for today, so please, if you want to see more stuff like this, a series like this where I talk about, well, any character in a game really, but preferably Marvel Rivals for the moment, because I'm kind of obsessed with this closed beta, please let me know in the comments. Please tell me that you actually do want this, because that's the best way for me to actually be able to know if this is wanted or not. This is actually a bit of a mini return to form to me, mainly just because I used to do a lot of content like this before Overwatch dramatic titles started to take off. But I really hope that I can come back to it, because I do prefer just writing really silly, stupid scripts rather than fully serious ones all the time. But that's all I had for today, so if you're still here, go on. Drop a like, a sub, all that YouTube stuff, and I'll talk to you next time, lads.